Higgins, and are you sharing time or?
No.
Okay, so you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes, thank you. I thank you, Minister, for coming to the House. I want to thank you particularly, I think, for when the horrifying details were being presented of this, of Tuam and of the children in Tuam, that you acknowledged that it was not unexpected, and that I think that was important, because we do need to recognise that this issue was in the public realm and had been discussed. And I think something you addressed in your own speech, something that we need to tackle in Ireland, is the culture of denial. The culture of denial, which is the first line that meets every time we see yet another example, yet another evidence, yet another story of our appalling history of institutional abuse. So often it is met with the culture of denial. People like Catherine Corliss, who are acting compassionately and heroically, constantly have to face disbelief, dismissal, and very often conscious obstruction in their pursuit that they have put forward. Again, it is wrong that individuals such as that have had to lead so much of the search for justice, but it is also wrong that they have met with such obstruction. And I thank you for acknowledging that, Minister, and I think that's something that goes very deep in Ireland that we will have to acknowledge and work on. I think we all know that there will be many other things to be found. We only need to look at what we know already: 472 deaths in 19 years in the Bessborough home, 80 of those children suffering from maribus, which means severe malnutrition. Babies who have, in many cases, been taken literally away from the arms of their mothers, whose mothers have not been allowed to breastfeed them. And we have children, as we heard in the story earlier of those who are here, even there, malnutrition, the most controllable, the most dealable, the most addressable, this representing almost 20% of those known deaths that we have at the moment in a very short period of time in Bessborough alone. I welcome your agreement to the extension of terms. I think it's important that that would be comprehensive. I think we have heard that you will look at the question of vaccinations, the exploitation by multinational corporations in that regard, and by medical schools. But we also need to look to the exploitation by companies of the unpaid work of those who are in the mother and baby homes. The unpaid work on a level of forced work, effectively, of those who were basically robbed of their lives, of their energy, of their physical labour and of their possibilities by these institutions. That has to be part of the remit, Minister. I'd ask you to ensure that it is. When we talk about the extension of the terms as well, we need to look absolutely, I believe, beyond those homes currently listed, into the county homes, even into the psychiatric institutions. I have spoken, for example, to a woman whose mother had postnatal depression and was put into a psychiatric institution and died there. This is all part of a deep architecture of repression, of control within our state. And when we start to unravel architecture, we will have to go deep, and we will have to look to all its strands and forms. And we will need to look to the issue of collusion. We will need to look, as one person at a recent Flowers for Magdalene's event said, if we broke no law, why were the guards called when a woman ran away? Why were the guards taking people back into these institutions? Why were passports being issued for children wherever there was doubt in terms of this forced adoption issue? We have to look at all levels, and but I also think, let us be clear, the fact of collusion, the fact we were, oh, I'm sorry, I've so much more to say, does not excuse these institutions at their core. I welcome there would be an interim report. There need to be interim actions as well, because groups like First Mothers have waited for actions for too long. That needs to come to the fore. I also want to say there was a violation of the principle of refuge that needs to be looked at. But I want to go, because I do have a very important questions to put, Minister, I would respect. We talk about the past, but we need to talk about now. Where is the obstruction of justice now? When records are denied to individuals, even the records of where their loved ones are buried. When Mary Collins has had to resign from the Pontifical Council for the Protection of Minors at the Vatican because she recognises that the Pope, while he acts in good faith, that his measures that he approves are meeting obstruction in the Vatican, a vast centre of wealth. And when there are very, very modern and very complex company structures put in place to hide and obscure the assets of the institutions who were involved in this violence and in this abuse. So I ask you, Minister, to ensure that we address the problems now. And I would say a last thing. I do recognise the good people within the Church, and I wish them well, including the Pope, in their work and their efforts for reform. But we are here to represent the state, and the state now, Minister, has to take responsibility to ensure every penny of compensation is paid, be it through the transfer of assets, as suggested rightly, I believe, by Senator Noon. And also, we need to say, it is not acceptable to have our education and our health services, Minister, delivered still with a new hospital open this week. We have to say the separation of church and state needs to be complete. This is now the moment to complete that transition. And I ask that that be part of the wider discussion. Thank you.
The next senator.